Fascinating mysteries surround. Once again, here's your host, the Director of ParaNet Information Services, Michael Corbin.
1-800-836-2009, 1-800-836-2009. My guest is Stan Friedman. We're talking about Top Secret Majic, his upcoming book. I believe it's going to be released next month. Is that correct, Stan?
Yeah, and I should add one little more bit before we get into Majestic 12, because the other part of what happened was that while there was wreckage found on the Foster Ranch northwest of Roswell, an almost intact saucer came down out in the plains of San Augustine, about 160 miles west. Ironically, it's where the Very Large Array, the world's largest radio telescope, is now. It used to be a lake bed. It's flatter than a pancake, about 60 miles by 20 miles, but surrounded by mountains out in the boonies. And the VLA is there not because they recovered an almost intact saucer and several bodies, one of them was alive, but because it's so isolated that the electromagnetic background, the radio background, is very, very low, and it's very unlikely you're going to be surrounded with shopping malls and housing places, you know. Okay, so the cover-up began almost instantly and was effective until I got involved in 1978, more than 30 years. And that's told in Crash at Corona, and that's a separate story. But then the question one has to ask, okay, the government has a problem. What's it going to do about it? I say government because here we're talking about New Mexico, White Sands Missile Range, Alamogordo Army Airfield, Roswell Army Airfield, Kirtland Air Force Base, Sandia National Laboratory, Los Alamos National Laboratory.
Just a whole bunch of classified properties.
High security, high classification, high technology. Somebody is paying attention in an area where the government was very sensitive. What do you do about it? Well, the very place suggests what you do about it. This is where most of the Manhattan Project was conducted, after all. There were facilities for manufacturing plutonium and enriched uranium and stuff in other places. But Los Alamos, which designed the bomb, was right there in New Mexico. First test site, right there in New Mexico. So what apparently happened, according to documents that were received in 1984, and there are more documents than the ones everybody's heard about. Some of these will be published in my book for the first time, I might add. But according to these documents, President Truman, on September 24th, 1947, authorized the establishment of a group called Operation Majestic 12.
Now, Stan, let me interrupt you real quick right there at that point. September the 24th, 47 was also the date that the National Security Act was signed into law, wasn't it?
Well, there was all kinds of stuff going around
That was a big day in 47.
Well, yeah, and the date, you know, who knows, the date on the authorization memo is typed with a different typewriter than the major memo, meaning somebody put the date on, you know, as appropriate. There were swearing-ins of, if that's a good phrase.
It'll work.
New leaders were sworn in. James Forrestal, as a member of MJ-12, was sworn in. They changed the whole national security authorization, the establishment of the National Security Council and all this stuff. Change had been in the works for many months, so I don't want anybody to think that I'm saying that because they recovered a crashed saucer and alien bodies that they therefore changed the whole establishment. No, that's not true. Remember, what also happened is that the Air Force became a separate body that September, rather than just the Army and the Navy.
Right.
There was the Air Force. So all of this had been in the works. But according to the memo originally received in December 1984, a briefing for President-elect Eisenhower, the original 12 members, it's very interesting, 6 civilians, 6 military. The first 3 directors of Central Intelligence. That was Admiral Sidney Sowers, Navy, Air Force General Hoyt Vandenberg, and then Roscoe Hillencoder, who was listed as the briefing officer. He was the first. There's a little trickiness here. It was originally the Central Intelligence Group, which was an outgrowth of the wartime OSS, Office of Strategic Services. So it became the Central Intelligence Group. Then in 47, it became the Central Intelligence Agency. So technically, the first three directors of Central Intelligence, the first two were directors of the Central Intelligence Group, and only the third one, Roscoe Hillenkoetter, was the director of the Central Intelligence Agency as well as the DCI. Some of this terminology gets a little strange when you start going through all this stuff and you don't get your time frame right. Now, the fourth director was listed in the briefing for Eisenhower dated November 18th, 1952, as Walter Beadle Smith, who was the director after Hillenkoetter. Then you also have Gordon Gray, who had been Secretary of the Army and did all kinds of classified stuff for both Truman and Eisenhower. You have James Forrestal, first Secretary of Defense. You have several outstanding scientists that included Detlev Bronk, for example, who was head of the National Academy of Sciences, head of the National Research Council, had been president of Johns Hopkins and president of Rockefeller University. Aviation physiology was his field, interestingly enough. You have Vannevar Bush, who was head of the Office of Scientific Research and Development during World War II, under whom was the development of the atomic bomb and of radar and of the proximity fuse. Had about 30,000 engineers working on 90 different projects. Natural for such a project. He was there when the first atom bomb went off, as a matter of fact. You have a guy named Lloyd Berkner, who was Bush's assistant at the Carnegie Institution in Washington. You have James Hunziker, who was at MIT. Aeronautics was his bag. And, of course, the real surprise, and this is the one that caught me and almost forced me to dig into this to prove it was nonsense, was the presence of Dr. Donald Howard Menzel, Harvard astronomer. Now, when I was read the list of names by Bill Moore, who was working closely with Jamie Chandray, who received this in the mail in California in 1984, when he said Donald Menzel, obviously this was a fraudulent document. I mean, Menzel was a total debunker, had written 3 anti-UFO books. And what the heck is a Harvard astronomer? Obviously, you don't need a security clearance to be a Harvard astronomer.
A good question.
Dealing with all these high-power, high-security guys. It was only when I dug into Menzel, all these guys were dead when we got the documents, okay? And there was another document found in the National Archives from Robert Cutler, Ike's National Security Advisor, to General Twining, who was another listed member of the team. He went on to be Chief of Staff of the Air Force and Chairman of the Joint Chiefs. At this time, 1947, July, he was head of the Air Materiel Command at Wright Field in Ohio. Traditionally the place where captured enemy equipment goes. So you'd expect a down saucer for whatever reason.
Okay, Stan, I've got to interrupt you right there. We've got to go to another break, and when we come back, we'll get more into the Menzel connection and some other questions, too. We've got people requesting questions of you on our internet relay chat tonight, so we've got some questions to ask.
I'll talk faster.
Okay. 1-800-836-2009, 1-800-UFO-2009. We'll be right back after this break. I'm Michael Corbin, and you're listening to the ParaNet Continuum. Get ready to copy down some computer addresses. I'm going to tell you how you can plug into the oldest and most reliable news and information service on UFOs and the paranormal on the entire planet. It's the ParaNet Information Services Worldwide Network. First of all, check out our page on the World Wide Web. It provides you hot links to other UFO and paranormal sites, along with audio clips from recent ParaNet radio shows and much more. Type in www.paranet.org/ParaNet/. If you're a subscriber to America Online, CompuServe, or the Microsoft Network, you can access the 7 ParaNet news groups covering UFOs, metaphysics, parapsychology, and more. Just select the Internet News Group function from your online service and search for ParaNet. You can also send us email at this address, paranet@paranet.org. So don't accept wannabes and substitutes. The name is ParaNet, the world's most important communications network.
Pilots depend on accurate, timely information, both in the cockpit and on the ground. Skyway Publications helps with both. The Skyway Airport Directory and Entertainment Guide provides convenient, accurate information for safe flight and landing operations, as well as local businesses that cater to pilots. These are free pocket-sized guides with information on large and small airports nationwide, along with technical information, fuel and airport services, and businesses that can make life easier for pilots. Keep in mind, it's free. Check your local airport for the Skyway Publications Airport Directory and Entertainment Guide, or call area 970-669-1800. Call Skyway today and find out how the guide can also be a financial opportunity for you. Skyway Publications, your ticket to safer, cheaper, and more convenient flight. Check your local airport or call Skyway at 970-669-1800.
Hi, this is Michael Corbin. I want to tell you about an exciting little place that I found to simply relax and hang out. It's Poor Joe's Coffee House and Espresso Bar, located at 970 Lincoln in the beautiful Golden Triangle in downtown Denver. Poor Joe's features some of the finest espresso drinks and goodies to eat anywhere around. Oh, so good. A full menu of specialty lattes, Italian sodas, desserts, sandwiches, muffins, and more. Open early for all you downtown coffee commuters and late for all you late-night owls like myself. So come by, relax, and enjoy good conversation, live music on selected nights, and of course me on Sunday nights live as we broadcast our program right from Poor Joe's. All KHOW listeners, come by during the show and get a 63-cent latte during the hour of 7 to 8 p.m. on Sunday evening. That's Poor Joe's Coffee House and Espresso Bar, 970 Lincoln in Denver. Call 863-9611 for more information. I'll see you there.
KHOW.
When it comes to UFOs, it's important to keep an open mind, but not as open as, say, a refuse can. We separate the facts from the garbage on the ParaNet Continuum. Once again, here's your host, Michael Corbin.
And welcome back, my guest, Stan Friedman. We're talking about his upcoming book, Top Secret Majic. And Stan, I got a guy on the Internet Relay Chat. He's Mixer Man from Chicago. He's listening on our Real Audio Net feed on the Internet to the program via KCNR, our affiliate in Salt Lake City. He wants to know what has given you this renewed interest in MJ-12 or the Majestic 12, considering that it's been so debunked so thoroughly?
Well, it's not a renewed interest. The interest never left, and it hasn't been debunked. It's been attacked, which is entirely a different matter. A key chapter, a couple of chapters in my book, deal with the attempts at debunking by Philip Klass. Point out that he paid me $1,000 for proving him wrong about the typeface on one of the documents. Deals with the debunking, so-called, of Kevin Randall. And most interesting to me, at least, because it happened just before I finished the book, the attempted debunking of MJ-12 by Carl Sagan, of all people, in Demon Haunted World, which is a strange book indeed. He attacks UFOs all over the place. And he's got a lot of references to crazy demon-haunted world stuff from the Middle Ages and things. His most frequently cited source for UFO materials is Weekly World News. He doesn't refer to the large-scale scientific studies. In other words, I've been to 15 archives. We got an awful lot of armchair theorists out there. In the book, I include, I did a 108-page report, final report on Operation Majestic 12 way back in 1990. And even there I included a list of more than 30 little trivial pieces of information that nobody knew before we got the documents, and that turned out to be true after considerable effort. I mean, like, who would believe that Menzel was part of such a team? I discovered at his files in Harvard, having to get permission from 3 different people to view them, that he had a longer continuous association with the National Security Agency. He said to Jack Kennedy, that Kennedy, back in 1960, 30 years with the NSA and its Navy predecessors. He had taught cryptography. He had a top secret ultra clearance with the CIA. He did all kinds of classified projects, not only for the NSA, but for a whole host of other organizations and companies. Nobody knew that. He was a perfect man for disinformation. He had a close connection with Vannevar Bush. Nobody knew that either. Bush was his staunchest defender. Had a loyalty hearing, McCarthy-era kind of stuff. So it's easy to do research by proclamation. What's a lot more difficult is to go out to the archives and do the dog work. I've talked to the family members of almost all the members of MJ-12. In the new book, there's a new document that brings General George C. Marshall into the picture. He was Secretary of State in 47. Truman considered him the outstanding living American. And one would have expected that he would have consulted Marshall, who was all during the war the chief of staff. And apparently he did. I've tried to take the same kind of scientific approach toward the MJ-12 documents as I do toward radiation shielding for compact nuclear reactors.
Just cite one of the most compelling pieces of evidence for the reality of a group known as MJ-12. What is it that you have?
Okay, I think the Cutler-Twining memo certainly is neat. This is just a short memo from Cutler, who was Ike's national security advisor to General Nathan Twining, 1954, I guess it is. And in it, it's mentioned that a briefing about the NSC MJ-12, NSC is National Security Council, Special Studies Project. The briefing will take place during an already scheduled meeting at the White House rather than after it as previously planned. And he's telling Twining, in other words, your schedule will be changed a little bit because you'll be free earlier. And he tells him that you don't need to respond to this. We presume everything will be all right. Now, there's no signature on the memo. The typeface on the memo is this large pica type. Phil Glass says it should be the small elite type because that's what they used at the White House, and he offered me $100 each for every genuine memo of the same size and style type from that period, up to a limit of 10, unfortunately, because I'd have made a fortune. Class had never... This is typical of the intellectual bankruptcy of the pseudoscience of anti-ufology. Class had never been to the Eisenhower Library. He generalized from 9 documents that he had done in small elite type to 250,000, assuming they were all done in the same typewriter, which is absurd. I'd already been to the Eisenhower Library. I knew there were at least 3 different typewriters used, including 2 different pica ones. How could any rational person leap to that conclusion from 9 to 250,000? I mean, from 99 to 100, I'd buy. But that typifies the problem. If you don't do your homework, it's easy to leap to conclusions. The Cutler-Twining memo doesn't have a signature, and it doesn't have a /S//, which other Cutler memos to Twining of the same general era did, either a signature or a /S//. What's important here is we didn't know until later that Cutler was out of the country. If there was a signature, even at just /S//, meaning original signed by, then we'd know it was a fraud. Now, how did any hoaxer, if you will, know that? Not to sign it, not to put a /S//. You don't need to be able to forge a signature, just a couple letters.
Stan, what do you think MJ-12 knows?
Well, I think the group was set up to deal with the important aspects of flying saucer visitations to planet Earth. One would be to learn as much about the technology, and I think they've learned a lot. 2, to learn as much as they can about motivation. 3, how many crashes there have been, how many retrievals of wreckage and bodies there have been. I think that certainly they know that aliens are visiting here. Now, the original members are all dead, but I think the group was continued, and probably the name has been changed, obviously.
Does this thing exist above the Constitution of the United States, as some allege?
I don't think so. I think that when you have an executive order from the president,
Well, do you think that Clinton today knows the reality of this?
Well, yeah, I think he does. However, remember, with an annual black budget of $30 billion plus,
you do a lot of
obviously he doesn't read all the reports of all these agencies. He wouldn't do anything else.
Of course, I sure would, knowing if we had interplanetary visitors here, I'd be darn sure on top of it.
I think, would be even better. From other solar systems in our local neighborhood, not intergalactic. People keep wanting to say from other galaxies. Let's talk about the local neighborhood, please. Yeah, I think he's been briefed to the extent that he knows that we've got bodies and wreckage, that there's been a major effort to milk this of technology, and that certain people have suggested that if this were to be released, it would, destabilize the world, whatever that means.
Okay. Let's hold that. We got to go to our last break. When we come back, I'll get some final thoughts from you and find out how people can get in touch with you, because I'm sure there's some people that would like to write to you or find out a little bit more. Stan Friedman is my guest. We're talking about top secret magic. When we come back, we'll get his closing thoughts, as I mentioned, and some other additional information. I've got a big question for Stan on the other side. I'm Michael Corbin, and you're listening to the ParaNet Continuum. We'll be right back.
It's been said that the pen is mightier than the sword. With ParaNet, the computer and modem is mightier than the pen. ParaNet is the world's foremost electronic authority on UFOs and the paranormal. ParaNet gives you rapid access to UFO researchers and others like you who want to know what's going on. You'll find stimulating discussions with an interactive link to the world through the Internet's information superhighway. There's a variety of departments dealing with paranormal activities, parapsychology, alien abduction research, conspiracy theories and government cover-ups, and cutting-edge science. There's even a skeptics conference. ParaNet also has the world's most comprehensive database of news articles, sighting reports, and much more available for a small fee. So plug into power and knowledge with ParaNet. Call the data line at 303-863-0469. That's 303-863-0469. Or for more information, contact ParaNet at 303-863-0484.
Learn more about UFOs and the paranormal with the ParaNet catalog. ParaNet, the world's foremost network of the paranormal, has a new catalog for 1996 with an updated list of previous ParaNet Continuum radio shows, available on cassette for $8 each, 2 for $6, or 3 or more for $5 each. You can also order ParaNet's famous black T-shirt with its stunning design of galaxies, stars, and comets, the logos for ParaNet and our sister group MyCap, and a beautiful blue, green, and white planet Earth. There's a complete Alien Grays T-shirt catalog, information on ParaNet's website and computer networks, and on how to subscribe to Continuum, ParaNet's official quarterly magazine. To get your catalog or to order, call 1-800-UFO-NET-1. That's 1-800-UFO-6381. ParaNet, your window on the paranormal, at 1-800-UFO-6381.
Hi, this is Michael Corbin, host of the ParaNet Continuum radio program. I want to tell you about a well-kept secret. It's the Metropolis Cafe, located at Colfax and Logan in Denver, featuring some of the best Greek cuisine anywhere around. With several traditional Greek dishes on their menu like souvlaki, pasticcio, and gyros, you can't beat the food, the atmosphere, or the down-home Greek old country feel. They also serve American and Mexican dishes, and best of all is their prices. They feature daily breakfast and lunch specials that will please your pocketbook and your palate. A locally owned and operated restaurant and bar. So, come on in. Enjoy the outdoor patio dining and relax. I'll see you there. That's the Metropolis Cafe, located at Colfax and Logan, right next to the Basilica. The Metropolis Cafe, Denver's best undiscovered Greek restaurant at 341 East Colfax Avenue in Denver.
KHOW.
This is the ParaNet Continuum, a weekly program dedicated to the mysterious and fascinating world of UFOs and the paranormal. If you're interested in learning more about ParaNet, the world's foremost communications network on the paranormal, call us at 303-863-0484 or write to Box 172, Wheat Ridge, Colorado, 80034. Once again, here's your host, Michael Corbin.
Stan, I got one quick question before we close the program. We got about 1.5 minutes to do this. I have one question I have is, with all this stuff that's going on in the private sector, if you will, or behind the curtain of secrecy, is there a split effort, say, within the intelligence structure to control the technology and one side that says we want the information released?
I think there are people in the government, yes, and the equivalent of MJ-12 who say, yeah, let's put it out there, and others who say they can't possibly handle it. One hope is if Clinton gets reelected and doesn't need to run again, and he's done more to help release information than any other president in recent years, that maybe we'll get lucky and they'll put some of this out on the table. Yeah, I think there's been a conflict, and for those who are listening who would want more information and want to know how to reach me and maybe know inside information on either Roswell or MJ-12, I'll give out an address, and I'll also send people. We didn't get a chance to talk about it. I've got a nice 2-page in English article from a Brazilian UFO publication about the recovery of a couple of strange beings down there in January, which is a big story. So send me a self-addressed number 10 envelope, please. Stan Friedman, Post Office Box 958, Holton, Houlton, Maine, which is ME, guys, 04730-0958.
Great. Stan, as always, it's been a great pleasure having you on the program, and we'll look forward to seeing your book when it comes out, Top Secret Majic, and thank you for being on the program.
My pleasure.
Okay.
Good night.
That's it for us for tonight, so until next week, I'm Michael Corbin telling you to keep your eyes on the skies. Good night.
KHOW.